The Westward Eye is a gothic horror audio drama. Mature themes and gore are present. Listener discretion is advised. Episode-specific trigger warnings can be found in the description. Thank you. Somewhere that may have existed long ago, or perhaps is still to come, lies a place isolated from the rest of civilization, known as the West, where lost communities perform ancient traditions, old gods pry themselves from the earth, and monstrous creatures lurk in the darkness. Their day at the lone schoolhouse passed in long stretches of unnerving calmness. While Sterling and Wymer performed odd jobs around the property, Etta and Tobin spent the majority of their time on the deck, sitting on a rocking bench and watching the children tumble around the makeshift yard. The yard itself seemed to be little more than a small plot of land cleared from all the prickly plants native to the West. But the children made do, playing imaginary games until the shadows grew long and stretched across the earth. After helping Lottie finish up her assignments for the day, Etta watched as the little girl played in the yard.
She's a lot like you.
What do you mean by that?
Nothing. She's just adventurous, brave. There's something about her that just reminds me of you.
I see it too.
Etta looked up to see the children playing. Lottie had positioned herself on top of a large red rock and was jokingly yelling with her classmates. Etta watched her with a small smile on her face until suddenly the young girl doubled over, hand clutching her chest.
Lottie? Lottie! Are you all right?
In an instant, Etta was out of her seat and at the young girl's side as she fell in a fit of coughing. Lottie's face was red. Tears streaked out of her eyes as she convulsed. To Etta's shock, the other children simply went along playing as normal, seemingly unaware of their friend's state. Gently, Etta set her hand on Lottie's back and rubbed in small circles.
Hey, it's okay. You're okay. Got something caught in your throat? Deep breaths for me. Can you breathe all right?
Lottie nodded as the coughing fit subsided, giving way to shallow breaths. Etta sat with the girl as she gasped for air, attempting to regain her composure. Lottie sniffled and looked up at Etta. As she did so, a drop of blood fell from her lips onto the ground below. Etta looked down to see splatters of blood, dark and deep, pooling on the dry sand.
Oh my, you're bleeding?
Lottie looked up at her, confused, causing Etta's attention to stray from the crimson-splattered earth for just a moment.
What? No, I'm not.
Etta shifted her gaze back towards the ground. To her surprise, the pool of blood that had been there just moments ago had disappeared completely.
What? No. Lottie, you were bleeding.
We all cough like that sometimes, and then we're fine. Mr. Field says it's just what happens when the sun sets.
What?
It's okay. If it gets really bad, Mr. Field just makes us tea and then we feel better. It's nice. It soothes your throat. I can ask if you can have some too, since your arm is hurt.
What kind of tea?
I don't know. He makes it himself, mixes herbs and everything. It's really cool.
The plants in the back room.
Yep.
Lottie, How long have you...
Before Etta could get in more than a word, Ruth ran up and grabbed Lottie's shoulder. With a giggle, she jumped up and once again began playing with the other kids like nothing had happened. Etta remained on her knees, scanning the dry earth where not even a trace of the blood remained. She shook her head. Etta had just had surgery after all. Her mind probably just wasn't all back yet.
Etta!
Etta nearly jumped out of her skin at the sound of Wymer's voice. Their host and Sterling had arrived back from their work and now stood next to Tobin on the porch. Etta rose to her feet and turned to face them, looking at Wymer for what felt like the first time since they'd met. The haze of the pain now long subsided.
Come on, we should get the students ready for bed.
Without supper?
They ate earlier. We have different meal schedules so that they can get to bed by sunset. The 4 of us will have supper in an hour or so.
Wymer grinned as Etta began walking towards the porch, stopping briefly to talk to Lottie. Etta crouched down as the girl ran by, gently grabbing her arm.
Lottie, are you sure you're feeling all right?
Yes.
Etta moved to let go of the little girl's arm, her hand coming back stained in dark red. Etta looked down at Lottie's arm. There, right under her sleeve, were deep blisters. They burrowed into her skin, leaving space for pus and ooze to leak down her arm. Unable to hold back her shock, Etta fell backward.
Etta, what happened?
Are you all right?
Wymer, Sterling, and Tobin were at her side quickly, pulling her up from the dusty earth.
She's hurt.
What do you mean?
Lottie, she's hurt. Something?
Etta looked down. The sight of the young girl stopping her mid-sentence. She seemed to be all right. The pus-filled blisters that had marred her arm a mere second ago were no longer there, and the blood that had stained her light blue overalls seemingly had disappeared. Shaking, Etta examined her own hand. To her astonishment, aside from some dirt, it was completely clean.
What?
It might be best for you to sit down. Sterling and Tobin can help me get the children ready for bed. You're still healing. Please take it easy.
Wymer guided Etta to the modest schoolhouse dining room and set up a chair. Tobin watched as their host reassured Etta that they'd only be upstairs for 20 minutes or so, just enough to make sure the kids all got to bed. Etta nodded in response, flashing Tobin a concerned look. He gave her a small nod and followed Wymer and Sterling, who had already made their way up the old staircase into the boarding quarters. Lottie, Warren, and Ruth bolted up the stairs, nearly causing Tobin to lose his balance. Clyde followed close behind, his stubby legs struggling to keep up with his classmates. 2 stairs ahead of Tobin, the young boy's shoe caught on the lip of one of the steps, sending him flying into the stairs in front of him. While Tobin had never really enjoyed children, he knew the one thing worse than a child was one that was in tears. With that thought, he rushed to comfort Clyde. When he got to him, to Tobin's relief, the boy wasn't crying. Rather, he remained motionless, laying face down on the staircase. Tobin gently grabbed his shoulder, which was strangely cold for a child who had just spent his day running around the desert, and turned him around.
Clyde, buddy, are you...
Tobin's breath caught short as 2 blank eyes stared back at him. Clyde's eyes which were normally the color of dark chocolate, reflected a glaring shade of white. Their shape was sunken in. The skin surrounding them was gray and sagging, giving the look of wet tissue paper. Tobin's hand clasped over his mouth, attempting to hold in the bile that was rising in his throat.
Tobin, Clyde, hurry up down there.
Tobin looked to the top of the stairs to see Wymer's dark silhouette standing against the light of the boarding chambers. His form somehow inky black against a backdrop of warm candlelight.
Coming!
Clyde turned and ran towards Wymer, small feet scrambling up the stairs. Once he reached the top, the child turned and waved for Tobin to join them. In the dim candlelight, the corpse-like appearance seemed to have melted away. Clyde's eyes once again glistened dark brown.
I think I need to sit down.
Understandable. Your body's had a traumatic few days. Please, go sit with Etta. I'll have Sterling join you in a moment.
Tobin nodded and walked back downstairs, the image of the rotting child still burning in his mind. Sterling turned the corner and stood behind Wymer, watching Tobin go.
They seem jumpy. Is that typical?
Wymer turned to face them, offering a soft smile.
The trauma of surgery shouldn't be taken lightly. I'm sure they'll feel better tomorrow.
Okay.
The herbs I use should speed up the healing process quite a lot. Not to brag, but I consider myself to be an expert on local flora.
What tea did you soak their bandages in again?
Oh, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Wymer waved his hands around, making light of Sterling's question. The group of kids brushed past Sterling's legs, running towards a large doorway at the end of the hall. Wymer chuckled and pursued close behind. Sterling followed suit and walked briskly towards the door. The room beyond its splintering frame stretched out into a large bedroom with 4 twin-sized beds. The children had already wrapped themselves in their quilts, their little heads resting on the pillows.
Have you all brushed your teeth?
Yes, Mr. Feld.
Do you promise?
Yes, Mr. Feld.
Excellent.
As Sterling looked at the kids cozied up in their beds, they felt envious. The few hours of sleep that they'd gotten the night before had been burned away by the hard day's work of helping Wymer around the schoolhouse. Sterling watched as the children's eyelids grew heavy, and they quickly began nodding off to sleep.
Good night, children.
Wymer backed out of the doorway, stopping next to Sterling, who turned and began to walk down the hallway to join their companions. Slowly, Wymer closed the large wooden door behind him. A loud click stopped Sterling in their tracks. The clicking noise sent Sterling into immediate action. Their hands wrapped around the hilts of their pistols, and they turned back to face Wymer.
Hey, it's okay.
Hands above your head now.
Sterling, it's not.
I won't ask twice.
The teacher raised his empty hands above his head and slowly stepped aside to reveal the source of the noise. A large padlock hung on the outside of the children's door.
Why?
The children sleepwalk. It's safer to have them sealed up. We don't want them wandering all alone outside at night, do we?
Sterling's gaze flashed between Wymer and the golden padlock, which glistened ever so slightly in the candlelight, its reflection dancing across the wooden walls.
Could you kindly lower your pistols? The children are sleeping just behind me, after all. I don't know what I'd do if any of them got hurt.
Right. Yes. Lead the way.
Sterling could feel their heart racing in their chest as they tried to remind themselves as to where they were. Wymer had been nothing but a gracious host. They couldn't forget that. Wymer nodded and shuffled past Sterling, who, after a moment, lowered their pistols and followed him down the stairs. There was something odd about how nonchalant their host had seemed.
Sterling.
Hey, welcome back.
Sterling reached the bottom of the stairs just as Wymer disappeared into what they assumed to be the kitchen. Moving quickly, Sterling sat down next to Tobin, eyes fixed on the door from which their host had exited.
Be honest with me. Are you two all right?
What do you mean?
I don't trust Wymer. I just have a bad feeling.
Don't you always?
That's not the point. I think now would be a good time to interview him, just to get more information. I spent the entire day with him and we barely spoke at all.
Well, did you ask him anything about himself?
No.
There it is.
Sterling rolled their eyes and opened their mouth in response, but couldn't think of a comeback. Thankfully, at that moment, the door to the kitchen burst open, and Wymer emerged carrying 2 ceramic casserole dishes, heaping full of cooked meat and potatoes. As Wymer moved towards them, Sterling's nose filled with the scent of roast and spices. For a moment, their minds shot back to their last meal with their mother and the plate of potatoes they'd left behind. Had she seen the letter? Would she even spend the money? Was she worried? A swell of emotion bubbled within Sterling, who quickly attempted to stuff them back where they belonged, deep, deep down. Wymer placed the dishes down in front of Sterling. He grinned as he sat and began scooping the meal onto his plate. With a forced smile, Sterling clasped their hands in front of them and leaned across the table towards their host.
Wymer, I think now would be a wonderful time for Tobin to interview you.
I couldn't agree more. Would you like to eat first?
No.
All right. Ask away then.
Although Tobin was displeased that they weren't eating first, he shifted his attention away from the fragrant spread in front of him and towards their host. Etta pulled out her notebook and flipped to a blank page.
Lovely. Let's start with the basics. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you know, my name is Wymer Feld. Much like you, academia is my passion, and I feel so fortunate to be able to bring it to these children.
Wymer looked up as he spoke, gesturing to the dining room ceiling, above which the children slept.
How long have you been teaching here?
I graduated from a school out west, in the city of Steamwell, if you're familiar. It was known for its technological advancements, but I'd always felt, out of sorts there. It was busy, loud, a 20-minute train ride just to get out into nature. Even the people there seemed grating, so full of themselves and their science, that they neglected to see what their land had to offer. So when I got my degree, I came out here, somewhere where I could be closer to the land. I made the journey and have been here ever since. As of this fall, it will have been 5 years.
Has it always just been you?
Myself and the children, yes.
Were they here when you arrived?
Clyde, Ruth, and Warren were, yes. Lottie arrived in the spring of my second year here. Her parents were the religious type, trying to make the journey down south to worship. They left her in my charge as they passed by. Said they'd be back for her in a year at most. I gave them my word Lottie would still be waiting when they get back. I'm not sure what happened to them.
Are the kids all right?
Of course they are.
They don't sound like it.
The hacking seeped through the floorboards, filling the dining room with the sounds of suffering.
Well, Lottie was coughing earlier today, and she... Never mind.
It's just long-term symptoms. Nothing to worry about.
Wymer, are they sick? What didn't you tell us?
As Tobin and Etta looked up towards the sounds of coughing, Sterling's gaze remained fixed on Wymer as a touch of grief shone in the man's eyes, making his youthful appearance sink far beyond his years.
No, they're not sick. But they were 2 autumns ago. It started with Warren. He came in one night with a cough. By the next morning, he was burning up. The fever overtook him to the point where I was changing cold compresses around the clock. 2 days after he fell ill, Ruth began to show symptoms as well. Then Clyde. Then Lottie. So I gathered some herbs from the garden to get their fevers in check, but as soon as their temperatures lowered, rashes began to cover their bodies. So I went back to the garden searching for something to ease their pain. But what I had grown wasn't enough. The rashes turned to deep blisters, and then...
Then what happened?
Well?
Sir, do you need to check on them?
They're all right. Their symptoms tend to get worse at night. The cool desert air and such. But you saw them today. They're back to how they were before. Things just become a little harder when the sun goes down. Its light warms them, helps them feel energized and happy. The sickness took an immense toll on their bodies. They are okay, yes, but things have been very hard since. That's why I'm here, to take care of them.
What about the tea?
What do you mean?
Lottie said when she's sick you give her tea. What's that about?
Oh, yes, it's a mix of lavender, mugwort, mint, and a few other herbs. Helps calm the body. But I don't want to stray away from the interview questions. Tobin, please continue.
Wymer stretched his arm out and gestured to Tobin. Avoiding their host's gaze, Tobin's eyes flicked downward at his own notes, looking for where to pick up the next question. He could feel his body tensing with each cough of the children above him, sounding ragged and pained with each exhale.
Yes, so, Wymer, what's it like living out west?
Wymer shot Tobin a vacant look before speaking.
It's wonderful. The West has so much to offer, if you know where to look. It's truly a magical place. Although I know your experiences here so far have been less than ideal.
What do you...
Don't worry, I know you're not from this side of the wall, and I can say with sincere honesty that I don't care. But I don't want your views of this place to be skewed by its horrors. Yes, they're a part of this place too, but I believe it's all about perspective. Things weren't always like this. A long time ago, the forces of the land were more harmonious. They offered growth as well as destruction. I don't know what changed in the recent years. Its balance has shifted. In the cosmic push and pull, it seems as though the darkness is winning.
The sound of hacking and scratching erupted above them. Wymer paid it little mind and continued to speak.
I've found ways to use the land's gifts to my advantage, to halt the evil from taking hold. Nothing comes without a cost, and with nightfall, the darkness creeps in.
Wymer sat motionless, his face frozen in a stoic stare. Sterling's hands clasped around their pistols under the table, moving slowly so as to not alert Wymer to their motion.
Do you have any other questions?
No. I think we're all right. Thank you.
Splendid. The food's getting cold, so eat up.
Tobin spared a glance at Sterling, expressing deep concern of what to do next. Whatever was going on was wrong. Sterling gave a quick nod in silent agreement and stood abruptly, backing towards the door behind them.
I think we need some air.
All right. Your meal will be waiting for you when you get back.
Sterling tensed, expecting their host to stand up, to protest, to do something. But Wymer simply remained seated, offering a slight smile that sent chills down their spine. Without another word, Sterling backed out of the door, their companions following close behind them. Sterling, Tobin, and Etta stepped out onto the schoolhouse porch. The light of the moon washed the landscape in a soft glow. A fog had rolled in sometime earlier, causing the cacti to look like unearthly pillars rising out of a silent ocean. Checking over their shoulder, Sterling led Tobin and Etta towards the schoolhouse garden. With a soft breath, they unlocked the latch of the tall gate that surrounded it and stepped into the fenced-off plot. The smell of rich soil and sweet greenery quickly filled their lungs. The plants grew tall, their full, leafy bodies a stark contrast to the spined cacti just beyond the fence. Sterling ducked and crouched behind a large bush as they spoke.
We need to get out of here, now.
I agree. I don't trust him. What was all that stuff about the sunset and darkness? Oh, something seriously is not right.
Do you have all your supplies?
Tobin and Etta looked up to see their packs resting on the porch, right where Sterling had left them on the way to the back door. Sterling followed their gaze, nodding gently.
All right, now let's...
Wait, now? No way!
Now could be our only chance.
No! We can't just leave these kids here with that man!
Etta gestured up to a small window on the second floor of the schoolhouse, illuminated by soft candlelight coming from somewhere inside.
Etta, darling, I don't think we have a choice here.
There's always a choice.
What do you expect us to do? Bring them back with us?
Well, I'm not sure. We could take them back east.
Through the mines?
Even if we did get back there safely, we'd not only be in trouble with the law, but with LawCorp for not getting any substantial findings.
We've seen monsters, Tobin. And the kids will be proof enough.
Etta, I may not trust Wymer, but we barely have the resources to feed ourselves, let alone 4 kids. You know it would be too much. They would just be in more danger with us.
No! They need our help! We can't just leave them here!
Etta.
Sterling reached a hand out to try to steady their companion. Etta stepped back, jerking away from Sterling's touch. As she jolted backwards, the heel of her boot collided with the edge of a planter box, sending her tumbling back into the garden. Her hands hit the earth, sinking into the rich soil.
Etta!
Tobin moved towards his companion, hand outstretched. After a single step towards her, he froze. Etta watched as the color drained from his face. His gaze pointed directly behind her.
Tobin? Tobin, you're scaring me. What are you looking at?
Tobin took a step back and leaned towards Sterling.
Is that what I think it is?
I believe so.
Etta slowly turned around, following Sterling's eyes. She felt herself bracing for the worst. Holding her breath, she turned to see a large rock slab. It was covered in tall, wilted grass and a thick layer of lichen, left to return to the earth. The edges of the stone were chipped, as if made carefully by hand, and withered vines wrapped up its base. The rock looked well worn, rough around the edges, yet tenderly crafted. Etta's gaze slowly worked its way up the slab, landing on 2 words etched into the hard stone.
Lottie Morrow.
Etta stumbled back, using Tobin to pull herself to her feet.
Do you think?
No.
Instinctively, Etta's hand wrapped around Tobin's, pulling him closer. Scanning the rest of the garden, she noticed that the grave that bore Lottie's name wasn't the only piece of stone protruding from the greenery. 3 other slabs of rock poked up from the bed of plant growth. Tobin raised his hand to his mouth, stifling a small gasp. The 3 sat in silence as the realization of what was going on washed over them.
There's no way.
Sterling stepped past Tobin and Etta and began hastily clearing the dense greenery from the other 3 gravestones.
Warren Peer, Ruth Winslow, Clyde Bell.
Sterling looked back at their companions, who stood next to each other, frozen in fear.
We have to know for sure.
Wait, what?
What are you doing?
Sterling crouched over the small patch of earth in front of the headstone that bore Lottie's name and began to dig. The thick plant cover had kept the soil moist and healthy, making Sterling's digging surprisingly quick. About a yard under the earth, Sterling's right hand collided with something hard. Etta and Tobin watched in suspense as their companion began brushing the cold earth off the front of a small wooden box, a little over 4 feet long. Sterling focused all of their attention onto the box, doing everything they could to hide their panic. Their dirt-covered hands moved quickly, gliding gently over the far side of the rotted wood. After a moment of searching, Sterling reached around the side and found the hinge to the box's lid. Swallowing down the bile that had begun to rise in their throat, Sterling pulled the lid off the box and braced themselves for a smell of rot and flesh that never came. Sterling looked down into the barren coffin. The inside was lined with stained fabric, and a pillow lay where a small head would have rested.
Sterling?
Their companion's hushed voice snapped Sterling back to the reality of their situation. Slowly raising themselves into a standing position, Sterling turned to face their companions.
It's empty.
What?
It's just empty. Whatever was in it isn't anymore.
You don't mean...
I knew he didn't tell us everything. That bastard.
A bolt of panic shot through Etta's body as Sterling spoke. She felt her muscles tense as the realization washed over her. Slowly, she turned to look back at the schoolhouse, at what once had been their sanctuary from the horrors of the arroyo. the light in the dining room still shone, illuminating Wymer's form, sitting at the table, seemingly eating dinner. A movement out of the corner of her eye pulled Etta's attention away from the schoolteacher and up towards the second-floor window. Although just moments before, the dim candlelight had illuminated an empty room, a figure now filled the space within the window's frame.
Lottie?
The figure looked similar to the young girl, and yet so wrong that she was nearly unrecognizable. Her once thick red hair sprouted from her skull in patches, cascading like dry grass over her shoulders. Pale skin stretched over her skull, tarnished by a deep red rash and blooming with pus-filled blisters. Even from a distance, Etta could tell that her eyes, which had been a vibrant blue no less than an hour earlier, had sunken in, turning a milky white.
This isn't right.
The sound of Sterling's voice pulled Etta's attention away from the window.
Wymer has some explaining to do.
Sterling began walking towards the schoolhouse, Tobin on their heels. Before they could make it more than a few yards towards the lonely building, Sterling turned to face their companion.
What do you think you're doing?
I'm coming with you.
No way in hell.
Sterling tilted their head down to meet Tobin's eyes. It was clear from just a look that he was brimming with fear.
Now isn't the time to be a hero.
You should take your own advice.
I don't know what Wymer did to those kids, but there's no way I'm letting y'all get hurt. You and Etta need to stay together. I'll deal with whatever's in there.
Sterling placed their hand on Tobin's shoulder and offered a small nod of reassurance. After a moment, Sterling dug into their jacket pocket, pulled out their Ma's journal, and placed it in Tobin's hands.
If things go sideways, I don't want you to come help me. Go back to the wall. Get home.
Visibly trembling, Tobin reluctantly stepped back and walked towards Etta, whose eyes remained fixed on the second-floor window. Sterling watched their companions lower themselves behind a large cluster of greenery. They pulled their pistols from their holsters and began walking back towards the schoolhouse. The smell of dinner filled the dining room. Its spicy aroma stung Sterling's nose as they entered, pistols fixed on the schoolteacher. Wymer sat eating his meal as though nothing was wrong, as coughs echoed from the floorboards above him.
Sterling, I would have assumed you and your companions would be long gone by now.
Stand up.
When I haven't finished supper?
I won't ask again.
Sterling pulled the hammers on their pistols down.
All right. There's no need to be in such a hurry.
Wymer stood, slowly raising his hands above his head.
Why did you come back here, Sterling?
Those things in the attic.
Children.
We saw the graves. They stopped being children a long time ago, didn't they?
Careful now. Don't go speaking about things you don't understand.
Wymer looked at Sterling, seemingly unfazed by the pistols aimed directly at his skull.
I understand enough. You're playing with their lives, and now they're in so much pain. You hear them up there? No one in their right mind would want them to go through that.
What are you implying?
They're not human anymore, Wymer. They're in pain. I'm going to do what needs to be done.
Sterling watched a look of panic flash across the schoolteacher's eyes. For the first time since they'd met, Wymer looked afraid.
Don't hurt them!
Oh, like you did?
I did not. What I said earlier was true. They got sick. All the herbs in my garden weren't working, so I lost them for a moment.
You buried them.
I didn't know what else to do. They'd stopped breathing.
Then how are they?
Doesn't matter. I would have done anything to protect them. I promised their families that I'd be there to make sure they were okay, that they'd thrive. I couldn't accept that I'd failed them. And being all alone in this school, I did what I had to do to make things right. You of all people should know what it means to want to protect those closest to you.
Don't. I'm nothing like you.
I can tell when someone's experienced loss. Tobin and Etta, they don't have it. But you. Who did you lose, Sterling?
Don't.
And what lengths would you go through to make sure you don't lose them?
Wymer's eyes tilted towards the garden. Sterling's bullet collided with the wall a little to the left of Wymer's head, leaving a splintering hole in its wake.
Please, they're all I have. Things get bad at night, yes. But I'm doing everything I can. You saw them today. They're happy. If you insist on hurting someone, hurt me, please.
Steady tears began to flow down Wymer's face.
Mr. Feld?
Mr. Feld, are you alright?
Wymer!
The children's calls through the floorboards pulled Sterling's attention away from the schoolteacher.
I'm all right, children. It was an accident.
Wymer turned back toward Sterling.
Please. They need me.
Sterling lowered their pistols, allowing Wymer time to rush up the stairs and disappear out of sight. Sterling listened as the lock on the bedroom door clicked open and Wymer entered the children's room.
It's all right, children. It's all gonna be okay.
Sterling listened for a moment as Wymer comforted the children before turning and walking out the front door of the schoolhouse, Wymer's words still ringing in their mind.
You lose, Sterling.
The thing that was once Lottie Moreau watched from the upstairs window as Sterling ran and collected their bags from the porch.
I've got the bags. Let's go. Let's move. Now.
Etta, we have to go.
Wait, what happened? She's still there. What did you do, Sterling?
Etta tugged on Sterling's sleeve. They refused to meet her eyes.
Nothing. Don't worry.
Etta could feel burning tears beginning to well up in her eyes as she looked at the figure in the schoolhouse window. It looked back at her, unblinking. Etta watched as more silhouettes joined Lottie in the lamplight. Clyde, Warren, Ruth, and Wymer stood, watching Etta and her companions begin to flee into the darkness. The children clung to the schoolteacher's clothes as they looked out the window. Etta felt Tobin's hand wrap around her own as he began to pull her out of the garden and into the night. By now, tears were flowing down Etta's cheeks as the three ran away from the schoolhouse and past the metal gate. Etta's senses dulled, and her hands grew numb as she allowed the ringing in her ears to take over.
Etta, we have to keep moving. It's going to be all right.
He's not following us.
I hope that's a good thing.
We'll find a place to rest soon. Just keep going.
This was Mar Smith as Tobin, Mikayla Grubbs as Etta, Logyn Clair as Sterling, Kit Cactus as Wymer Feld, Shey Rico as Lottie, Ken Miller as Clyde, Mikayla Grubbs as Ruth, Kyle J. Nelson as Warren, and Luana McTiernan as our narrator, with Jovan Jeffs, Alex Fryer, and Kyle J. Nelson as the recording text. This episode was written and directed by Mar Smith and Mikayla Grubbs. Additional voices, contributors, and audio sources can be found in the episode description.
Who are you?
This has been the Westward Eye. If you're a fan of what we're making here, please leave a review, share an episode with a loved one, and engage with our social media. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at the Westward Eye. Thank you for listening.